Burns, so close, too close to call.
Yeah, Todd, good morning. It's pretty exciting that there is the opportunity for us to get back the majority. It's very tight right now from what I heard. As of late last night, only about 1,500 votes separate the two right now, and they still have some precincts to count in Johnstown. So it's still up in the air, but having the majority means everything. As people saw over the past 2 years, the majority party runs the House. They, have typically elect the speaker. They have the majority leader that runs the bills. They run the committees. They basically determine the agenda for the next 2 years. So that one seat could make all the difference.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, Burns had the lead at last count.
Yes.
And so that one is still not called yet. They're not able to call that one way or the other. But you have talked in the past here on Indiana in the Morning about the fact that the way that it has been for the last 2 years really haven't been able to get much done in Harrisburg because you're not meeting.
Well, no, we haven't been. It was a rough session. We were able to get some things accomplished, mainly thanks to the Republican majority in the Senate. And thankfully, they did maintain that majority through this election cycle. So that's good news, but it could end up being, again, the status quo if the majority goes back to the Democratic Party in the House. Mm-hmm. And that can be somewhat frustrating. That slim of a margin, it's very difficult with just one vote separating either way. So it could be more of the same. Hopefully, and I think I've seen it over the past 2 years, that we have learned lessons. The Democratic leadership have learned lessons on how to work together to get some things accomplished. And I think this year's budget was a good example of that because we were able to do some good things working with Senate Republican leadership, working with the governor's administration to do some good things in this past year's budget. So I do think good things can be accomplished, but it's going to take a lot of effort and a lot of really good leadership on both sides of the House.
The party that is in control of the chamber is the one that sets the calendar, sets the schedule of when you'll actually be in session and what days you'll meet. So that being the case, why over the past couple of years have the Democrats in control, have they decided not to meet as often as the chamber has met in the past?
Well, to be blunt, because they did not have the majority throughout the entire session. A number of their members resigned. They had special elections, so the speaker chose, rather than to have us come to Harrisburg and vote on bills, they wanted to wait until the special elections occurred to hold their majority. That's simply what it was. Mm-hmm. And that was super frustrating for me because I like to get things done. Most of my colleagues like to get things done to help the people of Pennsylvania, to help the people in my legislative district here in Indiana County. So I'm hoping that we don't see more of the same along those lines. Hopefully we can maintain our membership and actually get some things done for the people of Pennsylvania. But you're right, we should have been there more, and we weren't.
I don't know if there's another legislator in Harrisburg who proposed more bills over the last couple of years than you have. You've had a ton of different things that you have wanted to get done in Harrisburg,
yes,
but haven't been able to because of the situation there with control of the House of Representatives. Of all of those bills, what are the ones that you are going to be wanting to reintroduce, and what are the ones that you have the most hope for? What do you think needs to be done from the packages of bills that you're proposing?
Well, thank you for mentioning that, Todd. I do have a number of pieces of legislation, House bills and House resolutions. I believe I introduced more than 20 last session. We'll get those all ready to go again this session. We did a lot of tweaking. There's a number of bills, and sometimes it's good to go through a process that takes longer because you get more stakeholder input. You work with parties that are involved in the legislation to try and make it the best piece of legislation that you can get. There's a number of stormwater bills that I think would help our local municipalities, our boroughs that did move out of committee that did not make it to the House floor for a vote. Mm-hmm. The resolution I had to study rural transportation, particularly public transportation in rural areas like Indiana County, passed out of committee but did not make it to the floor for a vote. A number of bills that I have related to mental health, the collaborative care model, syringe services programs for substance abuse disorders, Cody's Law. I just did an interview on that, and hopefully we can get that moving again. You're familiar with Cody's Law from what happened down on the Hoodlebug Trail a few years ago. It's hard to believe that I believe this will be the fourth session that I will have had to introduce that piece of legislation. Wow. But we're going to get them all ready to go again. I think they are good bills. Hopefully, with better collaboration and cooperation, we can get them done.
Do you list a priority that you would like to get done?
They're all a priority to me. I think that, I don't do bills that aren't good bills, so I think they're meaningful. And in most cases, the legislation that I introduce comes to me from people in our community that are impacted in some way by laws that either need to be changed, fixed, or in some cases removed.
Do you anticipate that if the Democrats do maintain control, that the schedule will be as slow as it was in the last couple of years?
It's really hard to say. Again, it's going to be a very slim majority either way, so that makes it very challenging on both sides. I am hopeful, as I said, that lessons have been learned over the past 2 years, and that going into this upcoming session, we will see more visionary leadership and leadership that actually wants to get things done, not just for political purposes, but to actually make a difference in people's lives.
The way that elections have run and the election cycle has run, obviously that has an impact on what gets done, but also the way that the schedule is set up, the calendar is set up, it's almost as if the first 6 months of the year are all focused so much on getting the budget, having the budget, getting the budget addressed, and then come the hearings, and then comes the wrangling over it through May and June, especially in June. And so the first 6 months of the year, almost always, the budget is such high mountain to climb.
It is.
That you don't really address other bills and other priorities. There are times when the House is there, especially in June, waiting for a budget to come, and therefore you get to work on other stuff, but nothing ever really seems to come to the floor. And then the calendar is so abbreviated for the rest of the year that, again, there's trouble getting stuff worked on.
Well, the budget is part of that, but it's also the process. Because when you start a new legislative session, all of the bills have to be reintroduced. They have to be put out as co-sponsor memos. They have to be introduced and assigned bill numbers. Then they have to move through the committee process. So your first couple of months are going to be spent working on the bills, getting them ready to go, and then getting them through the committee before they can actually make it to the floor for a vote. So that's part of it. And then, of course, the budget, the governor will propose his budget in February, and then we'll go through the budget hearing process and try and assess what's good about his budget, what's not good, how much he's going to want to spend this time around. And it is a process, but that's part of the I think the beauty of Pennsylvania's General Assembly is that, we have 203 members of the House, 50 members of the Senate, and the governor, and we all have to come together in some form or fashion to deliver a budget for the people of Pennsylvania. So there's going to be good, there's going to be sides, pieces that one side wants, pieces that another side wants, and hopefully you can bring those all together to do something that's good and meaningful for people.
State Representative Jim Stuzzi with us here this morning on Indiana in the Morning after an election where the chamber changes, and the roster, if you will, changes as well. Is there a learning curve for new representatives where they really, it takes them a while to settle in, and therefore legislation that they might have in mind gets bogged down too?
Yeah, absolutely. And there's going to be a lot of new members on both sides. We had a number of retirements, some open seats. A lot of new faces are going to be in Harrisburg in the next couple of weeks. We're back in session actually next week. So I think they're already getting their orientation underway, getting their offices set up, hiring staff, getting their offices in Harrisburg set up, learning the process. It's just like any other job. You think it's one thing until you're actually in the role and you see just how much more complex it is, how much more challenging it is to move legislation, as I just mentioned, all the processes that it has to go through. So there's definitely a time when they're going to have to be educated on the process, on how Harrisburg works.
Is it classic lame duck?
Most likely, yeah. We're probably going to move some bills that are maybe still hanging out there, mostly Senate bills, and then we will have leadership elections next week as far as our respective caucuses go.
If you know.
Right. Well, that's going to be the challenge. How do you elect leadership if you don't know who has the majority? Yeah. So that may have to be put on hold.
Yeah. We'll just wait until that final count comes in. And again, we're assuming the one seat that is open in Philadelphia will go Democrat.
Most likely.
Make it 101. And so the Burns race in Cambria County is the one that will decide.
It is, and all eyes are on Cambria County right now.
Yeah. Yes. Well, all eyes were on Cambria County the other night.
They were, unfortunately.
A whole other reason.
Yes.
My goodness gracious.
Wow.
This whole election process has been fascinating to watch this year, hasn't it?
It sure has. The ads and the mailers and all the stuff that were just bombarding us I think caused a lot of stress for people. I'm happy that the election is over and that we can all move forward, but it has been quite a cycle.
In the absence of a real campaign for our assembly in the General Assembly,
Yes.
for our guys from here in Indiana County, not a lot of campaigning is needed. Therefore, you don't have as much opportunity to meet with constituents. So you have to maybe create events at which you
Sure.
meet people. But those are important contacts, aren't they, to learn what's on people's
absolutely.
minds?
Well, from my perspective, Todd, I never slow down. I treat a campaign year just like any other year, and every other year just like a campaign year. I'm still going to all the events. I'm still going to every fundraiser for the fire companies that I can. We're still holding our events like the senior fair that we had a couple of weeks ago. Veterans Day is coming up on Monday, and thank you to all of our veterans. I will be at the parade here in town and some other events around the county. So the pedal is always to the metal for me because with an election every 2 years, there's no day off.
Yeah, that's
Yes.
true. That's true. All right, we'll continue to watch this race in Cambria County. It has such great ramifications for all of Pennsylvania, really. That one race, that's, we talk about get out the vote. Your vote counts.
And it could come down to every single vote. Absolutely.
This is it, man. All right. Representative Jim Stuzzi, again, congratulations.
Thank you,
and
Todd.
head off to Harrisburg and get some good things.
All right. Thank you. Have a great day.
It is the voice of Indiana County. It's WCCS 101.1 FM, AM 1160, and WCCSradio.com. Fox News up next, and then Josh in the newsroom.
All righty.